Today we are going to solve and graph inequalities. So our first inequality, and there are some like how-to notes in here. Honestly, we're just going to dive into an example. So example 1, solve and graph the following inequality. You solve an inequality the same way that you solve an equation. So whatever you do on one side, you have to do on the other side. So what do you think we should do first? Subtract 3. So 2x is greater than 6. Then we divide by 2. And we get x is greater than 3. When do you know when to flip the inequality? Okay, that's a really great question, and we are going to get to that. If you're dividing by a positive number, you don't change anything. If you're dividing by a negative number, that's going to flip the inequality. Now, how do we graph this? Some teachers would say that you should put -3, -2, -1, 0, 1. Yeah. I'm going to say 3 is right here. Sure, 3 is that dot right there. If you want to, you can also put 0 on there. But I don't care how detailed this is. I really don't. Honestly, if you just had a line and you wanted to stick a 3 on there and then graph it like that, that would totally be fine. Do we need to put an open circle or a closed circle at 3? Open circle, because it's just greater than. Just greater than or less than, you use an open circle. Greater than equal to, less than equal to, you use a closed circle. It depends on, does it have the equal line on there or not? And then we're shading numbers that are bigger than 3. X is greater than 3. So we want numbers bigger than 3. That would be this direction. Yeah, basically your inequality symbol makes an arrow showing you which direction you need to shade if your x is on the left side and your number is on the right side. So if it's written this way with x is greater than 3, it shows you which direction to shade. All right, number 2. Do you see why I put number 2 on here? What's in front of the x? So why don't you try number 2? Give it a shot. Be brave. It's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are proof that you are trying. I will say that multiple times in this classroom. Mistakes are proof that you are trying. First, we subtract 5 on both sides. That gives us -2x is less than or equal to 20. This time we are dividing by -2. Because we're dividing by a negative, we need to flip that sign. So it becomes x is greater than or equal to -10. I'm going to put -10 right here. Closed circle at -10. Greater than, so we're going to shade to the right. There are 2 types of compound inequalities. There's and inequalities and there's or inequalities. An and inequality is really like, if you look up here at the top of the page, if x is bigger than 0 and x can be smaller than 4, then 0 is less than or equal to x is less than 4. An and inequality means that x can be anything in between 2 specific numbers. And inequalities are usually written as a 3-part inequality. So let's graph this and inequality. This inequality says y can be bigger than -2. Remember, the alligator eats the bigger thing. So our shaded stuff needs to be bigger than -2. It also needs to be smaller than 0. So I need on this graph to have -2 and 0. So if I put -2 here, -1, 0. If you want to space it out by using like halves, you can. In between the y and the -2, It's a less than symbol with no equals, so we're going to have an open circle at -2. In between the y and the 0, it's less than or equal to, so we are going to have a closed circle at 0. So this one is going to be an open circle. This one is going to be a closed circle. Notice that y is in between those numbers. Y has to be bigger than -2, smaller than 0. That would be anything in between those two numbers. And inequalities are shaded in the middle in between the two numbers. When you solve a compound and inequality, you have three pieces of the inequality. There's the left side, the middle, and the right side. Anything that you do in the middle to get x by itself, you have to also do to the left and the right. So this is just like solving equations, but instead of two sides, we now have three sides. So the first thing we need to do is subtract 1. So subtract 1 in all three places. If you need to draw a line down through the two inequality symbols to separate that into 3 columns, that is totally fine. That will give us -3 is less than 3x is less than 3. Wow, that's nice. To get the x by itself, we now need to divide by 3. So divide by 3 on all three sides. We have -1 is less than x is less than 1. We divided by positive. We did not touch the signs. On your own, see if you can graph that one. Pause the video. Part of your assignment on EdSite today, you are going to need to figure out how to graph these in EdSite. And it's kind of interesting because it gives you a bunch of like options. So on this one, you would select the button that had like, I forget how it looks. But there's open circle buttons and there's like closed circle buttons. You just have to pick the button that matches how you want it to look. If you ever put something on the graph that you don't want, you just click that thing and then delete it. If you need help with the EdSite side of this, let me know and I will help you. All right, let's do number 5 together. What do we need to do first? Subtract 3. Some of you are looking ahead and you're like, I see what you're doing here. This is -10 is less than -x is less than 2. How do we get that negative away from that x? Divide by -1. We're dividing by a negative, so we need to flip the signs. So this is going to become +10 greater than x greater than -2. Honestly, I love this example because it kind of shows you why you have to flip the signs. Which number is now the smallest? The -2 is the smallest, and these symbols are supposed to eat the bigger thing. So do you see how -2 ended up on the right, 10 ended up on the left, so those symbols obviously have to go the direction they are. Now, before you graph this though, this is icky. You don't want to write your answer like that. It's not mathematically good. You always want the smaller number, and then you want less than symbols, and then you want the bigger number. You always want it to be just like it is on the number line, the smaller number on the left, the bigger number on the right. So put your -2 on the left, put your 10 on the right, x in the middle. You're basically just taking this thing, picking it up off the paper, spinning it around, and setting it back down. So between the -2 and the x, the symbol is eating the x. Between the x and the 10, the symbol is eating the 10. Now, graph that. on your own. Pause the video. Open circle at -2, open circle at 10, and we're going to shade in the middle. You don't need to put all the numbers. Honestly, a long time ago, I would just give you an arrow and have you do it like that. So it doesn't have to be, like, you don't have to have tons of detail on there. On EdSite, it will give you the whole scale and it'll show you where the numbers is. It gives you the number line in EdSite. All right, on the next page, I believe it's the next page. We've done and inequalities. Now it's time to do or inequalities. Here's the biggest mistake that I see on a test. I say, solve the compound inequality. And it says x minus 4 is less than 3 or 2x is greater than 18. And here's what goes through some students' heads. Or, all right, that one looks easier, so I'll do that one. This doesn't mean pick one. You still have to solve both of them. So the or does not mean pick one. You have to solve both. So you just have two separate inequalities that you need to solve. The first one, we would add 4 on both sides. To get x is, what am I even doing? X is less than 7. On the other side, we would divide by positive 2. X is greater than 9. Your answer is x is less than 7 or x is greater than 9. They're saying an acceptable x value could be smaller than 7 or it could be larger than 9. Anything between 7 and 9 is not okay. It has to be smaller than 7 or bigger than 9. So here's how this graph looks. If 7 is here and 9 is here, our x values could be anything that's smaller than 7. Our x values could be anything that's bigger than 9. In between 7 and 9, not okay. But smaller than 7, good. Bigger than 9, good. Number 7 is going to involve switching your inequality symbols because of dividing by negatives. But I believe in you, so I want you to try number 7 on your own. Pause the video and go. Okay, so when you solve these, you do have to flip the inequality symbol on both of them. So make sure you look through here. I subtracted by 5, I divided by -2, and that flipped my symbol. I added 14 on both sides. I divided by -3, which flipped my symbol. Now, some teachers are super, super, super picky. And they want the smaller number, -6, to be written on the left side. I really don't care about that. As far as I'm concerned, these are your two answers. Put the word or in between them. What's important to me is, if you get this answer, can you put this onto the graph correctly? So, remember, this one, it might be helpful to put 0 on there. -4, -6. The x is greater than -4. That would be an open circle at -4, greater than, your shading to the right. That one is graphed right there. X is less than -6. Open circle at -6. You're shading the values that are smaller than -6. That one is graphed over there.